Yo, welcome back to another video. Now, in today's video, we will be checking out the brand new summer units that have come out with update 7.5. Yes, this is a very late video for a showcase, but I am doing it just because I want to. I'll also be making another video going over Leo and also Escanor in a separate video. I'll probably put them two together. And then also I might be going over Jin Mori a little bit more with some team comps, because I have been getting some comments about kind of creating a team comp around Jin Mori, because the one that I did showcase, and to having him have a lot of damage, it's a very unrealistic team. So I'll be showing more realistic teams. So the first unit that we will be checking out is going to be Weather Report. So we have a Weather Report. He is a 4 placement unit. He is 800 cost and he is a water typing. So as you can see, he is a small range on placement and he has a line AoE, which is not too bad for being a placement unit. Usually how you would want to play with him is just keep him at his first upgrade and just place all of them, because I'll say this right now, he is mainly a support unit. We won't be going over any of his damage stats or even his Monarch damage because it is kind of irrelevant, but we will check out his costs. So going over to his second attack, it is 15,000 to upgrade and it is Tornado Toss, and then his final upgrade is 60,000 yen and is Atmospheric Blitz. His total cost overall is 61.1 thousand yen to place down, so 4 placements means that he is 244.4 thousand yen to place all 4 and max them all out, but realistically you're only going to be using him on placement. His unit passives: the weather, when this unit attacks an enemy, spawns in thunderclouds on the ground around where that enemy was attacked. These clouds linger for 10 seconds. Any enemy that passes through these clouds are burned for 40% damage for 6 seconds. Pretty decent, creates a lingering DOT, which is quite nice, and this pairs well with his second passive, the snails. Anytime this unit attacks a non-boss enemy, that enemy turns into a snail, slowing by 50% for 30 seconds. Anytime this unit damages an enemy, inflicts Bubbled. Now Bubbled, the next attack hitting the enemy deals 30% more damage. When you do hit an enemy that has Bubbled will be removed. But the good thing with this unit is if I go ahead and turn off the VFX because we don't want to see the thunderstorms, but what I'll do is bring in a single hit unit just so it's a bit easier to see. Alright, so you see this tough enemy that has come through. He is being slowed, but you see the bubbled effect. This is the bubble with the snow flake inside. If I go ahead and place a Toji down, he will attack, the bubble will get removed, but as you can see, the bubble gets replaced instantly, essentially, because there is a lingering thundercloud that is constantly reapplying it, meaning that his bubbled effect is very, very good, because most of the time, most units' attacks are going to be buffed by this bubbled effect, which is very good. And then I actually just forgot to show as well. We go over the attacks real quick. He goes into a line, into a cone, into a big cone, which is not too bad. All right, moving on to the next unit. This one will actually look at the damage numbers now. It is Alibaba from Magi, the same series that we have Al and Dark Mage from. He is a fire type unit, 3 placement, 1600 to place down. Going over his costs, at his second attack it is 16.8 thousand, third attack is 45,000, and last attack is 94.2 thousand. His total cost overall is 95.8 thousand. He's a 3 placement unit, so 287.4 thousand total cost. Going on to his attacks, his first attack is a small AoE. His second attack is a line. Third attack is a medium-ish to largish AoE, which is pretty nice. And then his final attack is a large cone, which is very good. His damage currently is at 72.77k. Let's go ahead and read his passive now. His passives are Fire Absorption and Fire Manipulation. Anytime this unit attacks a burning enemy, remove that burn from that enemy. Local 15-second cooldown. When a burn is removed via this passive, gain 50% damage and 50% range buff that lasts for 15 seconds. All right, so going over his first passive, if he were to hit a burning enemy, he will remove the burn off that enemy, but only a singular enemy and not every single enemy within his range. And every single time he attacks, he's not removing burn. As you can see, it does have a cooldown of 15 seconds, which in turn is basically how long his buff would last. The other thing with this is he's not able to constantly have his buff up. After the 15 seconds goes away, he'll need to attack once again to basically re-get that buff. Going over his second passive, Fire Manipulations, attacks burn for 30% damage for 5 seconds. If the buff from Fire Absorption is active, this unit detonates any burns applied to an enemy hit after 1 second. So for this last one, it is basically turning any sort of fire burn dot into instant damage, which is pretty good for creating burst DPS. A big fan of this unit personally, even though he's not exactly needed for being able to detonate burns. This also includes the burns that he applies on the attack that is also detonating the burns, so it's turning his own burns into instant damage as well, which is pretty good. So he is at 72.7k damage. Because the enemies are too weak right now, he's actually insta killing the enemies. But if I were to bring in a couple of tough enemies, you will notice that he won't actually be able to buff himself with only a single placement, because he is attacking too slow and the burn goes away before he can be able to consume a burn. So if we go ahead and use a weather report to apply another burn, when he goes to attack, he'll consume a burn, meaning his damage goes up to 109.1k damage. Ali's burn when he is at his max passive is 32.7k damage, meaning that his total damage on a single unit is 141.9k damage. This is traitless, which is pretty good. His single placement DPS is at 19.7 thousand damage. Placing all three down, having them all at their max upgrade, this will give a total of 59.1 thousand DPS. Out of all of like the units that deal damage, non-Monarch Ali is doing the lowest DPS out of all of them. Moving on to Ali's Monarch form, if we just go ahead and upgrade him to his max, he's at 291,000 damage. Very good, very strong. If I go ahead and place a weather report so Ali can consume a burn, Ali is now up to 436,000 damage. His burn when he is at his max passive is 130.9 thousand damage, meaning he has a total damage of 567,000 damage every single time he attacks. And so his DPS is 88,000 DPS during his uptime on this. It is not going to consistently be at 88,000 because he does have to attack once again after he does lose his buff, because he's not always going to be having his buff up constantly, but you know, doesn't really matter too much. He has a lot of damage, but he is a very good burn support unit at the same time. All right, moving on to our third unit. Our third unit is Hei. He is a curse typing. He is 4 placement. He is 1100 to place. If we go ahead and check out his costs, his second attack is 18,000 to upgrade to, and then his final is 59.3 thousand. Meaning that his total cost is 60.4 thousand, which is the cheapest out of all of the units on the banner. And then his max cost on placing all 4 and maxing them all out is 241.6 thousand total cost, which is also the cheapest, which is pretty nice. So going on to his first attack, it is a small AoE. The second attack goes into a cone. Let's go ahead and see it just real quick. Honestly, don't really need to. There we go. There is his second attack, and then his final attack is a full AoE. Very nice. Moving on to his passives, we have Dragon Flame Absorption. If this unit attacks a burning enemy, remove that burn and gains 5% damage buff for 30 seconds per burn stack removed, up to 100%. His second passive, Empowered Flames. Attacks apply burn for 30% damage for 5 seconds. Anytime this unit attacks an enemy while Dragon Flame Absorption is max, he inflicts black flames on an enemy for 80% damage across 6 seconds. Pretty decent. One thing to note with this is that his first passive, he is always going to try to consume burn no matter what. Even if he is already at his max passive, he is going to be consuming burns. So you definitely don't want to be running it EA with a bunch of other units that you're trying to get a lot of burn damage as like the main source of damage. He's basically removing all burn and buffing himself essentially to create black flames, which he can't remove, and that gives a lot of damage. So if I go ahead and place down a weather report, and then I'll summon in some enemies. So all right, so he is at his max passive now, so he's at 93.1 thousand damage. His burn during this time is only 13.9 thousand, but he does also get black flames, which is 74.5 thousand damage. One thing to note with this, if I go ahead and bring in a couple more enemies, because these enemies are already dying, if we go ahead and look at these enemies, as you can see, there is a burn on them. When he goes to attack, he will always remove the burn and apply a black flames when he's at his max upgrade. The other thing to note though is if there is already no current burn on the enemy and he goes to attack, he's going to be applying a burn and the black flames, if you can see right there. But we'll go ahead and show this one more time. If there is a burn when he does go to attack, he will always remove a burn and only apply black flames. So yeah, that is one thing to keep in mind. So his damage can be a little bit, or his DPS can be slightly inconsistent, because sometimes he might be doing more damage because he can apply a burn, but other times he's always going to be removing a burn so he can apply black flames instead. Doesn't really change too much. I wouldn't say there's a negative to make it so he can't apply a burn, but yeah. Going over his damage, I'm not going to include his burn for his DPS. It's only going to be his damage and his black flames damage. range. So total damage that he has on a single placement is 167,000 damage. His single placement DPS is at 15,500 DPS, which is pretty decent. And then going on to all 4 placements, he gets up to a total of 670,000 damage, and his total DPS is 62,000 DPS. This is every 10.8 seconds. He does have a very high SPA. Moving on to his Monarch version, if we go ahead and max upgrade him, he is at 186,000 damage. If I go ahead and place down a weather report to apply a burn, because one thing to note with him being in Monarch form is that he cannot supply himself with burns, so you need a secondary unit to be able to apply a burn. So as you can see, 372,000 damage. His Black Flames during his Monarch version is 298,000 damage in his Monarch version. Very similar total damage to having all 4 places, but because he does have slightly faster SPA, his DPS is 69,000 instead of 62,000. So as you can see, the DPS is like slightly higher than a no traded Hei, but the difference is that it only costs 60,000 to get similar damage than if you were to do 240,000. The other thing to note is if you do have a Monarch Hei, you want to run a secondary burn unit so he can get supplied for his first passive. So that is either Weather Report, which I think is the best unit to use alongside Hei, or just like, I don't know, maybe even Yamamoto would be pretty decent. Or if you don't have a Monarch, you don't actually need to run a secondary burn unit. You can just place all 4 down, and that should be good enough for him to supply himself with burns essentially. All right, now we're moving on to the final unit. The final unit is Quetzalcoatl. She is from Fate. I actually have never seen her before, so don't really know too much about her. 1600 to place down, fire type, and a 3 placement unit. Going over her costs, second attack is 20,000, 54,000 for the third attack, and last attack is 106,000. Her total cost is 107.7 thousand yen. Her total cost from maxing 3 is 323,000 yen, which makes her the most expensive out of all 4 units. Going on to her attacks, she has a small AoE. Her second attack is a slightly larger AoE. Her third attack is a full AoE, and then her last attack is also a full AoE. Moving on to her passives. Her passives is Lover of Humanity. This unit attacks inflict burn for 30% of this unit's damage over 5 seconds. Buffs all fire allies in range by 20% damage. The Sun God. This unit always attacks in a fixed cycle. Attack 2, then 3, then 4, gaining 50% stacking damage each time it uses a new attack, but the bonus resets when the cycle repeats back to attack 2. So as you can see, if we go ahead and look at her damage, she has 59,000 damage, then up to 89,000 damage for the next attack, which she'll go ahead and do. So this will be attack 3's damage, and then 119,000 damage for attack 4's damage. And then what you'll see is 149,000 damage. The most deceiving part about Quetzalcoatl, because that 149,000 damage that shows up, the 2.5 times multiplier, that is a damage number that she actually never uses to attack with. So this makes her seem better than what she actually is. But if we go ahead and check out her DPSs, they'll actually be pretty similar to the other units. But to confirm that what I'm saying is true, I do have a clip going into CapCut, and we'll go ahead and count out the damage numbers for each thing to confirm that what I am saying is true. It is a little bit weird though, because what you'll find is that even though with her attack numbers, her burn numbers are different. Her burn numbers go off of the 1.5 times, the 2 times, and the 2.5 times. But for the attack numbers, they go off the 1 times, the 1.5, and the 2 times instead. So yeah, I'll explain that in further detail right now. All right, so going over Quetzalcoatl's damage numbers, I am in CapCut, and we're going to be counting out the numbers. Let's go. All right, going on from the first attack, she's currently at 59.6 thousand damage, and then as you can see, when it goes along, it'll jump up to 89.4 thousand damage, and then we'll see the damage indicator come through, meaning this is the first attack in the cycle. As you can see, it hits for a 5.3 thousand. This is the burn damage, and then the 14.9 thousand, if I can, there we go, 14.902. This is the hit that she deals. This first hit that she, or this first attack, is 4 instances of damage. So there is one 14,000, and then there is 3 more 14,000s. So if we go ahead and we do 14,902 times 4, this is 59.6 thousand damage, which is her damage without any buffs essentially. I do have this as well. So that's her damage at 1 times damage right now. And then she'll have the visually we see a 1.5, a 2 times, and a 2.5 times, right? But so for Quetzalcoatl, she is actually only hitting with these 3 numbers. She never hits on this last number here. But the interesting thing that I found about her is with Quetzalcoatl is that Quetzalcoatl never burns on this number, but burns on these 3 numbers instead, which I'll go over too. So she burns for 5 seconds. Every second is a tick of damage. So she is doing 5,365,000 damage per tick of burn. So if we go 5,365 times 5, because that's 5 seconds, 26.8 thousand damage, which as you can see is the 1.5 times multiplier, which is quite weird. Now moving on to the second attack, as you can see, boom, 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 we let this go through. Now it's jumped up 119,000 damage. This is because she's just started her second attack animation, essentially. I have animations turned off because it makes it a little bit easier to actually see the damage indicators. So there you go. She has hit, this is a single hit attack, so 89.4 thousand damage. If we go back to my image that I have right here, as you can see, it is this damage indicator right here, the 1.5 times. But if we go ahead and look at the burn, it is 7.1 thousand damage. So if I go ahead and go to here, 7153 times 5, because it's a 5-second burn, this is 35.7 thousand damage, which means that she is hitting with this number, but she is burning with this number. You'll see the same thing with the first one. It is going like this, damages with the first number, hits with this other number, and then it goes like that as well. And then for the last one, of course, the last one will be the same. It'll hit for the 2 times multiplier, but it'll burn for the 2.5 times multiplier. And then this number right here, it never gets hit. And then this number right here, this never gets burned. Going on to the final one. So her damage number jumps up from 119,000 all the way up to 149,000, right? But then the damage hit actually comes through and she is hitting for 119,000, burning for 8.9 thousand. So let's go ahead and calculate the burn just to showcase. We don't need to calculate any of the damage numbers that she's hitting because it's a single hit. So you can literally just read what it says right here for the 2 times multiplier, and that's exactly what that is. Maybe slightly off, but you know, doesn't matter too much. If we go ahead and do 8942 times 5, this is 44.7 thousand damage, which 44.7 thousand damage right here on the 2.5 times multiplier. And then as you can see, the 2.5 times multiplier goes away and we're back at 59,000 damage, which I do have this slightly extended out. I just cut it off. There you go. She goes ahead and does her next hit, and of course it is the 59,000 damage that she is hitting for again. So that is actually what her real damage is. That last damage number that you always see is actually not a real damage number she hits for. This hopefully clears up a lot of things with people thinking that she is way better than what she actually is. She is still very good though. It's just not as crazy as what people think she is. Alright, so now that we understand her better as a unit and know her actual damage numbers, we can go ahead and check out her DPS. So, to actually understand what her DPS is a bit more accurately, what we need to do is we need to get her SPA over her entire attack cycle. So it's 3 separate attacks, so we just need to times her SPA by 3, giving us 20.1 seconds. From there, we just add up all of the damage and burn numbers that we have. So this is 422,000 damage that she is dealing every single 20.1 seconds, meaning that she has a total DPS on a single placement of 20.9 thousand damage. Do keep in mind that this DPS number is actually if you have at least one other place down, so she is getting that fire ally buff, because I don't know why I did it that way, but for a single placement, that is her DPS. Placing all 3 down and maxing them all out, we go to 1.26 million damage over the entire attack cycle, and so she has a total DPS of 62.9 thousand damage, making her have the highest amount of DPS over the 4 units with no traits at all. But it does change a little bit once we do get into going over their Monarch form and comparing their DPSs. Now onto the Monarch form. The Monarch form has a little bit of a different SPA. It is 6 seconds, so for this one the attack cycle is every 18 seconds. During this time she has a total amount of damage of 1.5 million, which overall gives her a total DPS of 83.4 thousand DPS. This is around 5,000 less DPS than a Monarch Monarch Ali and is about 14,000 more DPS than Hei. So still a very good Monarch to have, but Ali is the one that tops it for all of the banner units. And Hei, I would say, is very good when it comes to being very cheap. Quetzalcoatl is like in the middle. She is very strong, but she is quite expensive to upgrade. She does provide a buff, which is very good. So it is good to pair with Escanor. It is good to pair with Ali as well. So yeah, that is pretty much it. This unit showcase is a little bit longer than a normal showcase because there were some extra things that I needed to talk about, and it was 4 units that I was going over. I did try to shorten it where I could, but you know, had to put in all the information I can. Hopefully you have learned some things from the showcase, even though it is a whole entire week and a half late. But yeah, that is pretty much me. Appreciate it if you have watched this far through the video. So yeah.